Okay, the 2022 Indian Octane Scout Rogue Cruiser thing. It's hard to talk about Scout Rogue without mentioning the Victory Octane, but either way, this new Scout Rogue is heavily reminiscent of Octane.
And that's okay. You wanna know why? It's extremely fun to ride, and ultimately, that's what matters, right?
But let's talk numbers first. For size reference, I'm 5 feet 10 inches with around a 28-inch inseam. And I typically float around that 175-pound mark depending on how many tacos and beers I've had. But my feet sit easily on the forward controls with a generous amount of bend, my shoulders are a tad bit bent with the mini 8 handlebars, and my head sits nicely behind that windscreen. And here's a video of me riding Scout Rogue from Blockhead's point of view. Definitely check his video out on Scout Rogue if you haven't already. And also, here's a clip of her two wheels. You know, check out the homies for their take on it too. The motor is the same bulletproof Scout powertrain pushing 100 horsepower and 72 pound-feet of torque. Hey, if you didn't know, it's a heck of a ride all the way up to pretty much 8,000 RPMs to redline.
For those that don't know, I owned an Indian Scout Bobber in 2017, then I wrecked it in 2018, totaled it out, but that was around the time when, I was more agile, didn't have back problems. Essentially my glory days. I'm still a young man, but I was a younger man. But if you've ridden other Scout models outside of Scout 60, you're still gonna get that 6-speed transmission, still gonna get 69 cubic inches, 69. But of course the Scout 60 comes with a 60 cubic inch displacement and also a 5-speed transmission. So essentially the motor, transmission, other than refinements, I guess, is unchanged. So Victory Octane, I never ridden one, but I have been on Magnum, Gunner, Hammer, and looking back on what Octane was for Victory, it was their way of bringing an agile, new rider, young rider, liquid cool based platform to market. And a lot of people loved it. The powertrain in Octane is good. It got praise from many people. The performance in Octane is good. The styling is good. The weight for that motorcycle is good. The marketing efforts from Victory was fun. It did burnouts and wheelies, showing the capabilities of the bike, and some people will still say that it lacked. When Indian announced the Scout Rogue, I, and along with a lot of other people, said that looks essentially like a Victory Octane. However, in the styling they share similarities, but there are some differences. What's super interesting about Victory Octane is that it had a 17-inch rear wheel, which is also known as the rim. The Scout Rogue has a 16-inch wheel. And on the front end, the Scout Rogue has a 19-inch compared to the Victory Octane's 18. And what's even more crazy, this is where it gets really interesting, the suspension system on the bikes are completely different. So the Victory Octane has 3 inches of rear travel compared to the Scout Rogue's 2 inches, which is the exact same as the Scout Bobber. And you're getting 32 degrees of lean angle on the Octane compared to the less lean angle on the Scout Rogue, which is only 29 degrees. So you lost suspension between Octane and Rogue, but you gained front end and lost rear end between Scout and Octane. Like the bikes are similar, but they're different. And overall, at the end, we lost Octane, and I guess you could look at it from this perspective, that energy, in this case, it doesn't die, and Octane got transformed into, I guess, Scout Rogue.
Is the hand on the hip a little flamer? I don't know. That looks.
They say to like take your photographs, make as many triangles.
So how did I get here? Well, Indian Motorcycle flew me and the homies out to Cali to ride Rogue to give you all our honest feedback about it all. And I could say that we all liked it. My experience with Rogue started with hitting some urban areas, going through towns, stoplights, and traffic. And this was on the first leg of the press journey, and this gave me an opportunity to feel those generous 2 inches of firm rear travel.
If you know anything about Scout and being on Rogue, it brought back some memories of having my Scout Bobber. I've been without my Scout Bobber for about 4 years now, but since the Scout Bobber has the same rear suspension as Scout Rogue, it can be pretty harsh, but it's tolerable on most roads. But there's always that one bump on that tolerable road that just makes you go, why?
Luckily, the front end of the Rogue does a better job with the new front wheel and low profile tire. the tire and the wheel combo on the Rogue is lighter than the Scout Bobber's wheel and tire. And the Rogue's it's not as jarring on the front end. The suspension travel is the same as the Scout Bobber, but you do run the risk of damaging the wheel easier from a pothole on the Rogue.
This is the part of the experience with Rogue that just went south. And it was probably the lowest point of the entire ride, which was only 10 minutes into the ride. So at this point, the bike started acting up. And I just got like a bunch of just error codes on the screen. And I was thinking, dang, I've messed up this bike already. Like, what the heck is going on? And I thought maybe it was either the bike overheated or I was blipping the throttle too much, because Indians don't really like to have the throttles blip. They are electronic. But the codes went away. So I kept riding as if nothing was wrong. And eventually those codes came back. And at this point, I lost the throttle. Like, pulling on the throttle, it was just like, no, I'm not doing anything.
Like I don't have throttle.
So the remedy to this, Indian swapped it out. They said that it was a pre-production model. This bike, I think, had less than 50 miles on it. So that was a bit concerning. So my explanation for that as far as a pre-production model is just because the bike has been around for a while, at least the platform has been around a while, that doesn't mean that, you know, engineers aren't constantly updating things, electronics on the bike. But I'm here to tell you that it happened. And I'm also here to tell you that I think Indian figured out what the problem was, and I also think that the bike that people will be buying, they have it fixed. I'm hoping. I don't know. I hope they fixed it. But it's me telling you that that's the worst of it. And when they swapped my bike out with another Scout Rogue in the exact same color, I had no problems with it the rest of the day. So there it is. It happened. And that's me telling you. It happened. And we're moving on.
After a few photo opportunities, stop and go traffic, getting on and off the bike multiple times, we've gotten a good idea of how Rogue performs in town. Again, it's a Scout, but the front end updates along with the new handlebar setup, it makes it easier on the shoulders and low speed maneuvers. The seat height is still the same as the Bobber at 25.6 inches, so there's no issues for the shorter riders out there swinging a leg over.
One thing about these press events that we get to go on that a lot of people don't understand is that it's work. It's not just we're hopping on these bikes and just riding them endlessly. But I can tell you that I'm always grateful to be flown out on somebody else's dime, first world problems, to ride a motorcycle. But my job is to give you guys my experience and what I go through with this bike while I'm out there. And what you guys don't get a chance to see always is the constant just stop and go, the multiple photo opportunities that we have to go through, and the things we go through to capture the video and the story that we're trying to relay to you guys in hopes that, you know, this is a motorcycle that you're interested in.
Whew. Oh, thank you. These photo ops would take it out of you from the constant stopping and going, and whew, it's getting warm out here. Even though it's only what, like low 60s today, maybe. Yeah,
we're gonna warm up.
Yeah, you're constantly stopping and going, and you sit on these warm bikes. Yeah, but it's fun. It's part of the process.
But there was a part of this where, you know, we went up this ginormous hill that made me feel like I was in San Francisco, and it was one of the photo ops that they didn't tell us about. But what I really appreciated was the handlebars and that seat that they redesigned. You know, it holds you in really well. You don't have to worry about throttling down too hard and sliding off the back like on a Scout Bobber. And for me, when I'm, you know, on these photo ops, it allows me to pay a lot more attention to the little things on these bikes, like, you know, putting the bike constantly on and off the kickstand. You pay attention more to the weight and also the heat that's coming off of the motor. And the heat coming off the Scout, man, it made me think a lot about why Indian still has not put cylinder deactivation on the Scout platform, but we do have it on Power Plus, Thunderstroke, and even the FTR. I'm like, why haven't they put this on this bike? It is so well needed, because when you're constantly in stop and go, you know, photo ops, but in reality, you're gonna be stop and go in traffic. That motor, that rear cylinder is constantly just cooking your thighs, man. And there are people like myself that have complained about the heat that's coming off of the motor of Scout. And I'm just like, please, Indian, put cylinder deactivation on these bikes. And, you know, hopefully they will at some point. But again, it's always a great opportunity to get a chance to ride these bikes and share my experience. And for me, again, it just allows me to pay attention to the little things.
Once we hit the freeway, we really got a long-lasting time with those 2 inches of rear travel, those generous 2 inches. Constantly bouncing up and down on the 101. Again, the suspension on Rogue is the same, both front end and rear as the Scout Bobber. However, the low profile tire removes that slam stance and trades for a more responsive front end. But you still feel all of those little imperfections in the road, but the shock doesn't travel up your arms into your shoulders as easily. Also, the windscreen, it works.
The Scout motor is still one of my favorite powertrains, and 100 horsepower and 72 pound-feet of torque may not sound like a lot to sport bike riders, but for cruiser people in the right chassis, it's a lot of fun on twisty roads.
As we made our way to Ojai, California, we took the scenic route, which was filled with small town back roads. You know, lots of open fields, fantastic weather, all while riding through valleys. It really gave us a chance to rip and wring out that Scout motor, and I played catch up frequently as the more experienced riders just pulled away corner by corner. I'm constantly hitting the brakes late into the corner, engaging the ABS, scraping pegs. I even kicked the rear end out a few times, but I had confidence that the chassis, the brakes, the tires, the engine braking, all of this will work together to make sure that this 545-pound motorcycle would stop.
I really thought I was doing something, but no matter what I did, every single curve, it was like I was losing tenths of a second as they just pulled away more and more. You can really push Scout Rogue through a curve, peg scraping and all. And I remember Jess from Her Two Wheels saying that she didn't like the fact that she was peg scraping because you only get 29 degrees. So in most cases, you're gonna scrape. At least I was scraping damn near every curve. But I felt that the braking system was adequate for the bike, especially considering the motor is forgiving, meaning if you go too much, too fast into a curve, you know, there was room to still come back without fully falling over that edge. And I still love that about that motor. It's not too much and it's not too little, especially for beginner riders. That's really where it comes in most importantly, is for beginner riders. Making the bike not too much for people that are just coming into the platform.
Woo, that was fun. Holy crap, that was fun. This thing can hustle. Oh, this thing can hustle with that front end. It gives you so much more confidence with that front tire. You get so much more confidence with that front tire. It's crazy. Oh man, and the bars. Yeah, I like this. I like this. I like this a lot. Woo!
After this, I guess, spirited bit of riding, we bring the Scouts in for lunch, and it gave me a moment to reflect on the riding we've done so far.
All right, folks, we just got done riding the Scout Rogue in some interstate conditions, some back road conditions, some twisty road conditions, some maneuvering around cars and truck conditions. I'm not gonna lie to you, this bike can hustle. And that front wheel, to me, it gives me more confidence when I'm throwing it into the curves. But yeah, this is a very fun bike to ride. But now, it's time to get some grub. So we're taking some time right now to get some coffee right before lunch, and it had me thinking a lot about, you know, wanting to get another Scout. And if I do get another Scout, I definitely want to get a bigger front end, because that new front end on that bike just gives it so much more control, and you get a chance to feel the road more and feel more what the bike is doing with that tire. And those handlebars just makes dipping in and out of the curves so much easier. I really like that front end setup and those bars on that Scout. But yeah, it's got me thinking about what my next project probably should be.
So at this point, I'm full of food, full of coffee. I need a nap. I pretty much got the itis. We're all telling stories to each other, fellowshipping, and we're all talking about how we're each riding road. We're all riding this bike differently. We all have different experiences. We all have different builds. And I'm not thinking about my shoulders. I'm not thinking about my lower back. And this is about 40 to 50 miles into the ride. And also, don't forget, we've done photo ops, constant stop and go. We're hot. And again, the height of the bars, for me, 5 feet 10 inches, they work really well for my stature. And also the seat, again, it holds you in pretty well. So when you crack that throttle back, you lean into that curve, you don't have to worry about sliding off the back. So again, ergonomics, they did a really good job on that.
It's time to get back on the bike and about to do some more spirited riding, and that gave me a lot of time to think more about this bike and how to ride it. And yeah, Again, that front wheel is really the star of this bike, but about to get back to it.
Up until this point, we've had some pretty nice riding. It's beautiful, the weather's great, but we get to Los Padres National Forest, and this is when the roads open up, wider turns, but it's still very technical. And this is when we really get to beat on and push on Rogue. And I'm confident. I'm confident on the brakes. I'm confident in the power delivery. I'm confident that if I go too far and I skip that rear wheel out, because I actually did that a few times, I'm able to bring the bike back. But we got sweepers, tight turns, 180-degree turns where you go in one way and you literally going back the opposite way except your elevation changing. And this whole time, I'm enjoying this, and I just got this huge freaking grin on my face. I'm loving this bike at this point.
Yes. These brakes are really good. Even though it's only one up front, it works really well. Oh, it's just the way that motor like it spools up. God, it sounds so freaking good.
Eventually, we find another stopping point for more photo opportunities and getting a chance to run up and down the mountain for tracking shots.
All right, folks, we just got off a really fantastic road, and that freaking Scout Rogue nailed it. It shined beautifully. Now, the suspension obviously was still a little bit harsh when you hit bumps on the back, but the front end with that new tire and that rim, it soaks up the bumps so much better, but it just gives you so much more confidence leaning the bike into the curves. What do you think, Block?
What's up, guys? Blockhead Cam here. Yes, I will say suspension is a little rough on it, but it's predictable. So whenever you are in those leans, like whenever we would hit the bridges and it would have the difference in like the level of the asphalt, it was predictable. So you weren't hitting it and basically like trying to correct.
Yeah,
so,
once you hit a bump, it held that line.
Yep.
They did a really good job. Totally.
Bicasso Cam.
What do you think, Jess?
About what? The bike.
The bike.
I really like. It's very, very lightweight, so it feels more powerful than what I was thinking it was going to feel.
Yeah, what did they say? It's like 5 something?
Yeah, something like that.
I think it was 535 or 583 for some reason. I can't remember exactly, but
And the rim and the tire is lighter than the rim on the tire on the Scout body.
Nice.
yeah,
Which makes a big difference in the bar feel.
It does.
yeah. It's like actually
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Flicky?
flicky.
Very technical term.
Yeah.
But yeah.
During these press events, you're at the mercy of the group ride. You got somebody at the front that's controlling the pace, and you're with a bunch of different people with a bunch of different skill levels. So some people are going to want to go faster and slower than others. But when you do the photo and the video opportunities, that gives you an opportunity to do the pass yourself. Nobody in front of you, nobody behind you giving you pressure. And it gives you an opportunity to look as cool as you can. If you don't know what a tracking shot is, that's when you have a lead car, or in this case a motorcycle. There's a guy on the back with a camera that's filming you as you go through the turns. And what makes this easy is having a lightweight maneuverable bike that makes riding alongside somebody as they direct you to come forward or go back to get the shot. It makes it a lot easier when you have a bike that's lightweight and that can do that. And of course, Scout Rogue, it shined.
From this moment, we make our way back down the mountain just as crazy fast as we did going up, and we round out the day with around 150 miles on Scout Rogue.
Eventually we got back to where we started with Rogue, and by this time, normally I would have got off the bike not wanting to get back on it. But I can say that overall I felt good, and I credit some of that to the windscreen. So I look at it as if you're riding normally without a windscreen, 60 to 70 miles per hour, you can expect maybe 80 to 85 of that same level of comfort with the windscreen. So again, I'm 5 feet 10 inches, so I'm right in that area where they designed this thing to be. So if you're taller, expect differently. If you're shorter, possibly expect differently. But either way, it's not going to protect you from those crosswinds. Like you're in this big open valley and you can getting wind sideways, it's just you're not really gonna be able to stop that. But as far as that oncoming pressure on your head, it does a really good job at blocking that. And also I can say the handlebars, they did a good job at not only, comfort, shoulders were slightly bent, but also they do a good job at dampening the vibrations coming from the motor. So I do like to feel some thump from the motor, but Indian does a good job at dampening that. Now obviously when you get higher in the RPMs, you're gonna feel that. Now you do feel it a bit more in the foot pegs. They're not that good at vibration dampening, but again, it's noticeable. Is it a deal breaker? No, but you do feel it. When I ride these bikes, I go in with the perspective of how would I ride it if I owned it? And also, what are people gonna do with it if they got it? Like, how are they gonna expect it to perform? And from, the food outing that we had, the interstate riding, the mountain riding with the twisties, the fellowship, the urban riding, going in and out of traffic, I feel like we got a good, well-rounded perspective of how this bike handles different situations. And I could say that we got a really good experience with it.
But that was the unfortunate end of my time with Rogue. A familiar but different experience on Indian's latest addition to the Scout family. Don't get me wrong, Rogue is great, but style-wise, there wasn't anything groundbreaking to me about its design. It felt like filler. Although again, it feels like the most alive Scout with that new front end, and sometimes that's the trade-off. Refinement and improvements were the idea, instead of redesigning something that isn't necessarily broken. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. However, that doesn't mean don't improve on it. And that's my logic though, so definitely let me know what y'all think about that down below.
I said before that Scout Rogue has me wanting another Scout. And if I did do that, I would want to get the handlebar and a front wheel setup just like Rogue, because it just fits my riding style. And honestly, it's just different. It looks different compared to Scout Bobber. But I also would still want to get a bigger rear end. I want at least like a 200. My Chief, for instance, it comes with the 180. I'm putting a 200 on it. And honestly, on Scout Road, you're only getting 29 degrees of lean angle. What's a rear tire of 200 really gonna, you're not gonna mess it up that much more. Many people are gonna be looking at Scout Rogue as a first bike, and also Scout Rogue 60. And they're gonna enjoy that bike as it is right out of the box. And that's a good thing. For those of you already out there with Scouts, you could turn your Scout into a Rogue. For somebody like myself that's been rebuilding the Chief, I've been paying a lot of attention to motorcycle design, and taking the front end off of that bike is so easy. And for the Scout, it is probably easier, and it wouldn't take you much time. So if later on down the road you wanted your bike to look like a Rogue, just spend the 20 to 30 minutes taking the front end off and putting the Rogue front end on. But the good thing is that this platform is modular, so anything you see on the other Scout, you can do to your own Scout. That's a good thing.
I like the Rogue. It's not the dramatic outcast from the rest of the Scout family I thought it would be considering the name. However, it does things differently while also being familiar. Taken from the advancements of the already established Scout platform, new and current owners should be excited for more options. If you're on the fence about getting an Octane compared to a Scout, also consider the wider support network Indian has compared to Victory. Victory's not even in business anymore. Even though Octane shared 35% of its parts with Scout, the majority of the accessories market is less likely to make parts for 4,000 motorcycles compared to tens of thousands that are actively on the road now, and the tens of thousands that are probably going to be made in the future.
I think Indian did a really good job on Rogue, and especially considering what Rogue is compared to Octane, it's not the same. It's different, but again, it's familiar. It's a familiar bike on a very well-established platform. And I do like the fact that Indian got the price of Scout Rogue down to $11,500, which is the same price as the Indian Scout Bobber. And if you go the Indian Scout Rogue 60, again, smaller motor, 5-speed transmission, you're looking at $10,000. So again, it's good. When I bought my Indian Scout Bobber in 2017, I think I paid $11,500 or $12,000 right at MSRP. So again, it's a good price. And at the end of the day, if you have a Scout, or if you're not looking or see the purpose of Scout Rogue, just look at it as it's an option on a well-established platform. But this is just my experience with Rogue. There were other people out there, of course, and if you want to check out their videos, you can click right here to see Her Two Wheels' video, and also you can click right here to see Blockhead's video and see all of their experience with the bike. And also, if you want to catch up on my Indian Chief series, if you've never seen any of it, you can click this playlist right here on the screen and start from the very beginning. But as always, thanks for listening to my story. And if you're subscribed, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.